Exolon is horizontal pang with a missile launcher. It's our Sinclair 73. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Sinclair. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
Now, Aaron, today we're going to be talking about Exolon.
Yeah.
Now, this was your pick, Aaron.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what was it about Exolon that grabbed you? Because I know you didn't play it. I know you saw it somewhere. What was the one thing that said, this is going to be this month's Our Sinclair game?
Well, as you know, Bud, I do a feverish research when it comes to games that are upcoming and systems we're going to cover. And when you were doing the show with me last month, and you were getting ready to say, so Aaron, what are we picking this month? Of course, I had nothing prepared. And so with one hand, stealthily, like no one knew, I was clicking away on this keyboard for some ZX Spectrum games. And I just, there's a little bar of games at the top. And I looked at the pictures and looked at the names. And I thought to myself, which one of these pictures looks cool and has a cool name? Bam, Exolon.
Exolon,
and
there it is.
Lo, it came to pass.
There's the peek behind the curtain, folks, if you ever wonder how these things come to pass.
That's right.
In lieu of our usual ridiculous banter this afternoon, Aaron, I thought we'd talk a little bit. We don't normally talk about the news of the world of the ZX Spectrum, but we're making a special exception this month because there's a very special event going on that's our community is part of, that is taking place. So this is going to be something that will leave its mark on the Spectrum community for all the ages, and that is Asteroids RX, Aaron. Asteroids RX. And now you've had a chance to play this game. Why don't you tell everybody what Asteroids RX is?
It's funny, Boat. We got a message, gosh, it's been about a month ago maybe, from the fella that wrote this. And he's like, hey, you want to try this game out? Cool. And I was like, I think you forwarded it to me. And I was like, well, heck yeah. And it just so happened I was doing a live stream that night. And so we did a ZX stream. And we fired up Asteroids. And the author was in chat with us, which was real cool. So everyone could ask him questions and stuff. And so, I grew up on games like Asteroids. I mean, Asteroids is one of the first games I ever saw. And it may have been the first vector game I ever saw. And again, you've heard this spiel, but it's true. If you've not seen these vector games like in person, you really can't understand what they look like. They've got a real nice glow to them, and it's very satisfying, the vector graphics. And Asteroids was one of those games I thought was a real playable game back in the day. And so when I saw that he was pulling something like that out for the Spectrum, and I did have to say, I wondered, I was like, wow, surely there have been other attempts at Asteroids on the Speccy over the years. But I mean, I had to say I hadn't played any, so I'm sure there are somewhere out there, but I haven't seen them. So we fired this up, and to my delight and surprise, this thing played great, Boat. A real fun time. Now, we played a copy that wasn't quite ready to be released. In fact, I believe the author is still making some subtle changes to stuff like the saucer's shooting speed and maybe even choices between the shield and hyperspace and stuff like that. But for me, this thing was a lot of fun, and the reception of this was very, very popular, very well-received game, Bode.
Yeah. And as part of a history-making occasion, our very own Discord, Aaron, is now taking part in a high-score competition using one of the pre-release builds to make to basically make the high score table that's going to appear on the final game.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
It's actually both the author's Patreon community, which is Happy Coding ZX, I believe is the name of his Patreon, and the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord community are competing against each other to get those top 10 names on the scoreboard that will be on the shipping version of the game. I submitted a high score, Aaron. Something tells me I'm not going to make the cut, man.
Listen, hey, at least you gave it a shot. But, just as a side here, it makes me happy, Boat. Here we are, two dumb Americans, West Virginia hillbillies, who really didn't know jack squat about the ZX Spectrum, 5 years ago or more? And now we're actually getting to see our little community hook up with one of the ZX communities, and it makes me happy to see this sort of thing go on. I really enjoy the Spectrum. Obviously, here we are. But, I mean, there's something about it that just appeals to me. And a game like Asteroids on this system really makes me happy. And it makes me proud to see our great Discord community hooking up with the ZX community to get some stuff done and have a little fun in the process, Boat.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to jump in on the challenge, you can either support our show, R Sinclair, at patreon.com/R Sinclair, or head on over to Happy Coding ZX to support Alan and all of his projects. You can get access to the game that way in its pre-release state, and you can put up a high score yourself.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, let's talk Exolon.
Bam. Oh, good idea, Boat. So, Exolon, as you heard, I really fevered over this one, Boat. But I'm not going to lie to you. I think I got lucky on one here. Exolon released in '87, and this was put out by the Houston Consultants. We've seen some stuff published by them. Created by a fellow named Raphael Keko or Seko. I'm not 100% sure you pronounce his name. This guy did a ton of stuff on the Spectrum, though, Boat. Cybernoid 1 and 2, Drot's End, Equinox, License to Kill. Remember, we covered that on the Amiga way back in the day. Solomon's Key. Another one, Stormlord 1 and 2. This also was worked on by a fellow named Nick Jones. He did Cybernoid as well. He did Equinox as well, but he worked on a couple other games, including Akari Warriors, Armalite, and one that we've got to try sometime, Boat, simply known as Mr. Wino. We've got to get in on Mr. Wino.
I had a game picked out for next month, but I may be changing.
If any two people should cover Mr. Wino, it's us. The last person to work on this, Nigel Brownjohn, which that's a great name.
That is a great name.
He worked on Beyond the Ice Palace and Hijack. So you had three guys here that had worked on a few things. The C64 version was in fact worked on by Nick Jones, so he's the one that converted that over. Now, what in God's name is this game? Well, this is a game I actually went into the docks, Boat, to get, you know me. I had to go get the background scenario here. So here's what you got. This isn't long. As a heavily armed humanoid, you battle, blast, bound, and blunder your way over more than 100 screens.
I did a lot of the latter, I can tell you that.
Yes, of blood-curdling action. Release a deadly grenade to devastate a birth pod, and shoot the hordes of aliens that slither and scramble to overwhelm you. Rocket a gun emplacement and pneumatic hammers hurl you end over end over end back across the screen. And in a new twist, some of the screens can be played as the vulnerable but athletic Victork, or as Exolon, a lumbering but powerful exoskeleton, Boat. So this game is let's call this what would you call this, Boat? A shoot 'em up, a ground based.
This is a flip. It's a flip screen run and gun.
Okay, there you go. Thank God for those of the many titles that these various genres have been given. You play the heavily exo armored guy as you make your way from left to right. In space, across the screen, fighting a never-ending barrage of enemies who not only come at you from the sky, but also have gun emplacements, crap that comes out of the ground, the whole 9 yards. Now the gimmick in this game, and it's a good gimmick, Bo, if I may say, and as in a lot of games, you've got your normal blaster, but you also have the ability to throw grenades. And I think the system they implemented in this to throw the grenades, I really, once again, and this isn't the first time we've ever seen it, but when it's done right, it works great. And they did it right here. To shoot, you just tap your fire button. To throw a grenade, you hold the fire button. It's that simple. I found it to be an excellent system. And I had no problems at all launching. And really, grenades is not really what they are. That's what they call them in the book. But they're more like missiles, like portable missiles. Boat. This game, of course, taking place in space works to the advantage of the Spectrum because you could just have a big black background. But one thing they did here that I loved is this game is full of color. It's got all kinds of crap going on, doesn't it?
It does. this is probably the most colorful game I've ever seen on the Spectrum. I mean, it literally, every screen contains every color in some way or another.
Yeah, and it's a nice contrast with the black space behind you. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
works real well, I have to say.
Yeah, because you've got the colors in the foreground, and then you've got the black and white. You got the blackness of space plus the white star field, and then in a lot of screens you have planets. Colorful planets, sometimes multicolored planets in the background. So it's very, very atmospheric.
This game supports the usual control methods, including the key set your own keyboard controls and the Kimpston. So you're good to go there. This will run on the 48 or 128 boat. And I should mention that I found this with the original price of this, and what a bargain in my opinion. £7.95 boat for this one.
Yeah,
back
that's
in
a
the
great
day,
price.
so that's a heck of a bargain. This got other releases on the Amiga, Amstrad, CPC, Atari, and of course the C64. I did not look at any of those, but the Amstrad. Did you try? I think I'd had a cup of coffee with the Amiga, and then we'll get to that in a minute. I want to talk about how this game actually plays. This game is sort of it's in the tradition of the a single screen game, so flip screen, where you try to beat each screen, and they present you effectively with a problem on each screen. A gun emplacement to overcome, some stuff to jump over, some stuff to grab, a place to get to. And unlike a game, say like a Manic Miner, where it's unbelievably difficult, I felt like in this game that I had at least a fighting chance.
Well, fighting is the opportune word because you have an offensive weapon in this game, unlike Manic Miner.
That's true. That's true. Well, and maybe that made all the difference. But between the grenades and the guns, you can dispatch a lot of the enemies in this. I will say one of the things that make this game appealing to me is the fact that your character and all the other stuff in it, it's huge. I mean, these are big characters. What did you think about it? I know you like the colors. What did you think about the overall, the different graphics, the different stuff they had going on in terms of what you fought, and the variable things that you encounter as you go through these different screens?
Listen, this would be a pretty easy game to kind of half butt it around. You could have some tiles where you just kind of repeat every screen could just be a variation on a theme. You've got 5 or 6 things that you combine. This game really isn't like that though. I mean, this game, there are probably 9 or 10 different enemy sets, and of course they range from balls to ships to other things like that. But they're different things. So every screen was almost like whenever you made it to a new screen, you just kind of took some time to check it out and you just kind of admire the art that was there.
Yeah.
I really appreciated the stuff like the ships that really serve no purpose, but just kind of hover in the background and you see the colorful exhaust coming out of the tailpipes.
Cool.
All that stuff is great. The elevators that teleport you, they have the sides of the elevators gleam in different colors. They have, and it's just, the game is very atmospheric, and I feel like a lot of care was taken in the design of not just the levels, but the actual elements in the game.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to me, I was very impressed with that.
I will say, now, we mentioned that the size of your character was, it's a fairly large character. They have, you fight weapons in this that are also large, but they've been cunningly designed. And we just had somebody mention this in chat. There's a gun, for example, you fight that shoots high and low missiles, and there are missile weapons or bullets. It's a very difficult. In fact, you get a higher score when you get past it, and you have to duck and not duck in accordance to when the missiles are coming, and you have to literally shoot them as you come towards the gun. It's real difficult. But it actually, it's sort of a game within a game. You try to sit there and try to time this and make sure you don't screw up. I enjoyed that. On top of that, whenever you destroy a lot of elements, you release other elements that you have to contend with.
Right, and that's where the pang element comes in. So like you'll fight orbs, and when you beat the big orb, and sometimes this happens with other enemies too. But whenever you defeat it, it will turn into lots of small circles, and then you've got to defeat those small circles. And so I thought that was cool. We haven't really talked about the coolest part of the game. The coolest part of the game is when you activate the grenade launcher, otherwise known as the missile launcher. Whenever there are these large structures that you have to destroy, and they don't hurt you a lot of times. A lot of times they're just there to be blown up. They're there to be gotten out of the way. When they explode into tons of little particles. It's like very elementary particle effects that you see in like games these days. And it's a very impressive fireworks-like explosion when you see that.
It is very impressive. It fills up the whole screen with crap, basically. And sometimes you have multiple ones on the screen. I was really impressed with that element of it in terms of the explosions. It's funny the documentation says there's over 100 screens in this. I probably went through about 50 screens. And
what? Are you serious?
Well, yeah. I did pretty good without the cheat, and then I put in the cheat. So, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I did pretty well. I had a pretty good run. This is a game. You're not going to just walk up to it and whoop it. What you've got to do is you've got to understand how this game is going to play. And I give you those guns are a perfect example of there are elements of this game where you don't shoot them. You just move past them and then you score.
Right. And I'll tell you something else. This game is well designed in that if you get close enough to certain turrets and things, the guns will stop shooting.
Yeah.
It's like the game tries not to screw you at every opportunity, which is a nice change of pace with the old Spectrum.
I agree. And there are also elements in play where you have to stand in a certain area to make sure that your grenade/missile weapon will actually arc in and hit what you're after.
Yeah, because it doesn't just go in a straight line. It arcs up and comes down.
It is incredibly satisfying to stand at a certain area and watch those missiles arc in on the target you're after and blow it up.
Well, what I like to do is I like to launch a missile out. You see it sort of, the missiles travel pretty slowly compared to your bullets. So you launch a missile out, it's coming down, then you charge forward, you're firing your gun as the missile hits its target. Everything's blowing up. You feel like freaking Commando. Yeah. It's great.
There are elements of like platforming in this. They can be difficult, extremely difficult. In fact, there's absolutely places where pixel perfect jumps are required. Now the difference is, you're not going to be instantly killed if you screw those up. Generally, the few places I'm thinking of, you just basically have to go back and try again. Once you move off of one of the screens, you can't go back. That's another element to this that's different than say some certain other games where you could kind of go back to the last screen. This one, once you get to the new screen, you're locked into that screen. So there's no going back. But Roy, there's not really any reason to go back. Sometimes you're going to come across special things that you want, like, for example, extra grenades that you need because your grenades are finite. You only have a certain amount. And they are difficult to get to sometimes. Sometimes some screens have sort of like a double puzzle in them. You can either just go the easy route or you can go for the gusto to try to get extra grenades. Because I can tell you right now, running out of grenades, no good.
You physically won't be able to survive because you've got to blow stuff up to continue.
Yeah. So those are important. Something else I wanted to acknowledge on this game is the fact that this is a happy thing, by the way. This game's informational display doesn't bog down the rest of the game. It stays nice and tightly at the bottom of the screen where it's supposed to be. It gives you exactly what you need to know without taking up a million tons of the screen or putting a big name over it, all that crap that we hate.
This HUD could have come out of a console game. It's that good.
Yeah, I mean, listen, let's not beat around the bush. I think this is one of the best games we've played on the ZX. I was blown away by it. I really, really enjoyed it. Is it hard? Yes. But it's not so hard where I didn't think I had a chance. And I really like the elements of shooting and how it plays. I will say the hit detection is pretty good. It's not the best. It's pretty good.
Right. Pretty good.
Yeah. The airborne enemies can be very difficult to deal with because they I don't want to say they fly in a random pattern, but they are programmed to go everywhere, and so they may come on top of you.
Here's the thing. If you enjoy games like Jet Set Willy or Manic Miner, but you want to have more offensive capabilities, you want to be able to blow some stuff up, this is a great title to move on to.
Yeah.
Because first of all, it's not nearly as hard as those games. So you'll be able to make more progress, but it has those elements of you've got to study each screen and you've got to say, okay, this is the route I'm going to take. And you can't deviate from that route much at all or else you won't succeed.
I think, listen, I like Manic Miner a lot. I like a lot of this type of games, but I think this game is the most playable of that ilk. I mean, not just because the offensive weapons, and it's certainly, without a shadow of a doubt, the best looking. We have not looked at too many Spectrum games that were on the level of this graphically.
No,
and especially with the amount of stuff that's going on the screen. There's a lot going on.
There's very little color clash.
Yeah.
It's big, beautiful. We've played games like this before that are all monocolor.
Yeah.
They've been similar to this, but this kind of ticks all the boxes. It ticks everything you want out of a Spectrum game.
Games like this on the Spectrum, we were talking about vectors earlier. The Spectrum and its unique palette, when it's used correctly, it's every bit as striking as a vector game in its own unique style. Do you know what I mean? I mean, like, you're not going to see this set of colors arranged this certain way with the graphics. You're not going to see this on any other machine or any arcade machine.
I know that you've chosen the CPC version for our port comparison. Yeah. But let me just take a moment to dump all over the C64 version.
Okay, please.
Because it looks horrible. It tries to mimic the ZX Spectrum color palette, and it fails miserably. The ZX Spectrum version plays just as fast. This is definitely one of those games that if you were a Spectrum owner and you had a buddy that was constantly bragging about how great the C64 was, this would be a game you could take out and say, let's see how good this plays on your system, buddy. Because it doesn't play as well, it doesn't play as fast, and it doesn't look nearly as good.
You can tell. Now, I did not try the Amstrad version. I've just looked at the comparison, but to me, the Amstrad version seems slower than the ZX version. And graphically, it looks pretty good. But I mean, I personally prefer in this particular instance.
All you have to do. I'm sorry to interrupt you. All you have to do is look at the animation of the main character.
Yeah.
The main guy in the CPC, he has multiple colors, but he also looks like a freaking skeleton. He doesn't look like a cool dude at all.
Yeah.
The Spectrum has more of a hand-drawn comic book like look.
Yeah, I thought I like the look of the Spectrum more on this particular instance than the Amstrad. Now, it's not all fun and games. I will say that, Boat. And one of the things I don't like about this game is that some screens put you instantly at death's door. And I came across several of these where you have to react instantly, which this is the same old story. Now, some might say it keeps you on your feet, which it does. It keeps you paying attention. But it's I don't like games that do that. I like to have at least a second or two to realize to take in what I'm doing.
Yeah, especially in a game like this where you have to plan your plan of attack.
Yeah. This game, I looked at some critical reviews of it, Boat. So your Sinclair gave this a 9 out of 10, a very good score. Crash gave it 9 out of 10. CVG gave it 9 out of 10, and ASM gave it 10 out of 12. This game won. Yeah, I know. This game won a bunch of almost won some awards, I should say. It was the second best shoot 'em up in Crash '87, third best game in Crash of '87, third best graphics in Crash of '87, and the third best platform game in Crash of '87. So it was a Crash Smash. It was a Sinclair User Classic, and it was the Your Sinclair Mega Game in issue 20. So it did. It's amazing. I like to look at what those other games were, to see how what trumped it, because we haven't seen a ton of stuff that I think looked better. I mean, there were a few things that I'd say looked a little bit better, but not much. But in terms of it's not just pretty. I mean, it is fun to play, and it's also fun to look at. Did we get any Discord action on this, Boat?
Yeah, we did. We got a couple reviews from the old Discord channel. We're going to start things off with Batman. Batman says, Exolon is a game that occupied more time than was healthy for a young chap studying for his GCSEs. Wonderful graphics, lovely sound effects, particularly on the 128, and absolutely rich in just one more go flavor. I'm happy to report that playing it again elicits much the same response from me now. In fact, I often have a bash on this when I'm gaming on my various Speccies. I loved it then. I love it now. 9 out of 10. Geogglebox writes, the uninspiring loading screen somewhat belies this exciting shoot-'em-up platformer. But from the moment the option screen fires up and the jaunty music starts, the whole thing exudes quality. I initially played this in 48K mode and was impressed by the multicolored and engaging graphics, the smooth movement, and the pretty good sound effects. moving into 128K mode, and the sound improves to a new level. I found the gameplay pretty addictive. Definitely one I'll go back to over and over again. 10 out of 10. Geogglebox loves it.
Wow. Very.
MC Chessers writes, Exolon blew my socks off as a kid with its large, well-animated, and colorful graphics. Coming back to it as an adult, it still looks great, but its gameplay relies a lot more on rote memorization than skill, and it can feel slow and plodding at times. I still enjoyed the time I spent with it, but its gameplay wouldn't pass muster nowadays. 6.5 out of 10. And finally, Byrne writes, I was always impressed by Exolon's colorful graphics, but I was never satisfied with the gameplay. Launching rockets to destroy obstacles and watch them fill the screen with debris feels very satisfying at first, but there's no skill involved. Ducking and shooting at the gun turrets feels like playing an LCD Game & Watch. The flying enemies are frustrating. These balls and rockets are taken straight out of Jetpack, but I can't zip around the screen shooting them. All I can do is jump and duck while firing at sprites that remain just out of reach of my gun, but still able to hit me. 5 out of 10.
You know, I can understand that perspective, but I want to cover one more thing with you before we turn this thing loose. I can see the argument that the guy is a slow and plodding guy, but in my mind, and maybe I'm just compensating here, Bo, for the game, but this is a guy that's in space, and he's also in an exosuit. Okay?
Right.
You're not going to be bebopping around like the Flash. You're in space, and when he jumps and stuff, that looks space appropriate. He has these big, long leaps, and so to me, now maybe I'm just stupid, but to me, he acted like I would think a guy in space in an exosuit would act.
Sure. I think you can make that claim.
Something else I would ask you, since I know this is your one of your pet peeves, I did not have any trouble with up for jump in this. Did this provide you any difficulty?
I believe that my controller was already mapped to up for jump on the Mister. So.
Oh, okay. So you mean you had a button for jump?
I had a button for jump.
Well, I played this with up for jump with no trouble, and so I think for some reason in a game like this where it's not real fast, and maybe like I said, it could just be my mind screwing with me. I think up for jump worked just fine, and I thought the speed
I think
was
in a game where the jumps they're difficult, but they're not necessarily really time with like you always have plenty of time to kind of calculate where your jump is most of the time. I can see how up for jump would work in a game like this for sure.
I did look this up on eBay in case you're interested in picking this up on tape. I found a compilation tape that had sold recently for under $4 US. So if you can catch one of those, you can get it cheap. I didn't see anything up currently that was available with this, except there was a gentleman asking $35 or best offer. A little fishing out there. I would wager if you held out for a little while, you could probably pick up Exolon for a halfway decent price, Boaster.
Yeah, I would think so. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our coverage of Exolon. We appreciate you listening to our Sinclair. If you do want to support the show, you can do so by heading on over to patreon.com/our Sinclair, and you can help us reach our goal of making our Sinclair a weekly instead of a monthly show. You can throw us a couple bucks and make that happen. We want to thank all of our supporters. These are the guys that really make our Sinclair happen. We love doing the show, but we love the support as well. That's what keeps us motivated. We want to thank Geogglebox, David Terrace, Justin TinpotGamer, Edvin Helland, Andrew Waite, Eric Nelson, Kapin Krispy, Laurent Giroud, Mark Downie, Hermski, Paul Bossman Harrington, Peter Mulhullond, Chris Foulds, Gary Heather, Byrne, Mark Derham, Mitsoyama, and Pixels at Dawn. Thank you guys so much for supporting our Sinclair.
Thank you.
Now, Aaron, next month on our Sinclair, we're going to be looking at a game whose name alone makes you want to dance. It's Pajama Rama, Aaron.
I don't know what that is, but I like pajamas. That's all I
got. Yeah. Now, maybe, Aaron, you could wear your pajamas for this. You have a very famous set of pajamas you could wear on the show.
Good idea.
And I could wear my pajamas.
I'll do it.
Nothing.
Hey, any show where I get to wear my PJs, I'm on board.
Listen, man, it's going to be great. So We will see you guys next time with Pajama Rama. And until then, rewind tape
and press play.